Southern Shores Town Council for June 18, 2013 is in session. I invite you to join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We lost another one of our old timers Friday. Mo Utley, been around town for many years, well known to many of us. All his friends and buddies are going to miss him. So let's hold a moment of silence, and Mo will be on my mind. Thank you. Council, it is necessary that we go into closed session this morning. Therefore, I would amend the agenda, item 10, a closed session, and item 11, adjourn. Have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have it. Consent agenda is before you. Tab 1. We've all had a chance at these.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion to approve. It's seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Public comment. I think we have one speaker. Ann, would you?
My name is Ann Walker. I live at 25 East Dogwood Trail here in Southern Shores.
Microphone.
Yeah, sorry. I don't need to repeat the other part, I hope. But anyway, two things this morning. Number one is at the intersection of East Dogwood Trail and Duck Road, on the east side, if we could get the same painted markings that are on the west side of East Dogwood, it would help the flow of traffic considerably. It's not only the tourists, but it's a lot of the residents have a tendency to stop their vehicle in the middle of that lane, and cars trying to turn left cannot get over there. So that's one thing I'd like to ask. And the second thing is, I am here as the president of the Women's Association at Duckwoods Country Club, and I would like to support their bid to amend the current sign ordinance as it stands right now, so that we can get some signage there at the club. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann. We turn to our town manager to lead us through tab 2, where we're going to discuss priorities for street improvements and repairs for the fiscal year 14, starting July the 1st, 2013.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The Capital Improvement Project Committee for this year did meet again to go over the observed street needs, and also to attempt to, in some form, prioritize and make this recommendation to you as full council today. And there is, as you can, on this sheet, there is, as you can see, in the color codes on the bottom right, it anticipates an increase in funding, and for that I'll defer to the two elected officials on the committee in just a second. But just to explain the way this is prioritized, there are two groupings. One is a reconstruction category, and the other is a repair category. The reconstruction category, of course, being the most costly in capital funding, and that is at the top. And then there's a repair grouping about midway. All these projects total $630,000, which is in excess of what you as a council had directed me to budget. So I think we'll get to that discussion in 1 second. But right now, this is the way that the projects have been categorized out, and this is the recommendation of the CIP committee. And Mr. Mayor, I'll just, I guess, ask for Councilman Kowalski or yourself to comment on the increase in funding, because I believe that would be in order to discuss ahead of anything else.
Well, the committee, as we met, it became clear that where we had set aside 3 cents for street reconstruction and repair, we had overlooked the fact that we received PAL bill money, and it was not my intention when we discussed it initially that the 3 cents would be reduced by the amount of the PAL bill money. It was my intent that it would be supplemented by the amount of the PAL bill money. So, and Councilman Kowalski, I think, echoes that. So we're here this morning to ask you to revise the plan to include the PAL bill money in addition to the 3 cent tax that we're going to apply to our road structures for next year. You have anything more to say, George?
I do. And I think also the council should be aware of the fact that the groupings are such that allows staff to decide, and I guess we also voted to have a new, department coordinator, whatever we call the person who's going to be in charge of all public works and this kind of stuff, to allow them to be able to select, because of various reasons, not necessarily financial ones, but just problems on site, whatever, allow them to be able to select which ones to pick out of the category when they do it. So it's not a listing that is of any priority. It's just simply categorized in these two groups. Something has to go at the top and something has to go at the bottom, but there's no reason, for example, why you can't do mise en masse before you do Shingai or something like that. And so these are just financial categories. And the $630,000 is the combination of the $424 for the reconstruction category and the $190,000 worth of repair category. And that, if we take our 3 cents, which is now 4.1 something or other, and add it to the monies from PAL bill, then we'll be able to hopefully be able to get all of this first group accomplished next year and these roads repaired and fixed that are listed in the list. And that's the thought process that we went through. If there's money left over, then and it's a nice amount of left over, then we can then jump into the further project and start that off. So we keep rolling and getting going. Because in the back of my mind, I still have the fact that, and I know just to throw it out there, but we do have a Duckwoods Drive scheduled for this year, and there's money been assigned to it, and it is not being done this year unless we get really going fast and they can accomplish it. So there is that idea still out there. So that's the thought process of why we did it this way, to give leeway to be able to do this. Because some of these roads are repairs. They don't need to have full design systems in the, take a photograph, say what you got to need repair, and it gets done kind of thing. So that's the thought behind this.
And as I understand it, Madam Finance, this does not change the bottom line in our budget. just transfers it from the capital reserve fund into the,
General fund, capital, yes, sir.
yep, yep. No change in the bottom line in the budget. Will it require a budget amendment?
We can, for the minutes, either direct us to budget it now, or when we get to the budget presentation, you could amend the way we proposed it at that point in time, since it has gone to public hearing.
Let's do it when we talk about the budget.
Okay.
Then. What is your pleasure with this plan, council? Are you ready to endorse it?
I just have one comment to make. I was glad to hear what George added, because when I reviewed what you put in here, number one, I liked the split between the roadway work and the repair. And my personal reaction when looking at it was, the town manager runs the town. We've listed these things we think he ought to look at. He needs to decide which one should get done where and who and how we do it. So I'm totally, totally in agreement with what you've put together. I like it.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a comment following up on that? I did want to say, I appreciate that comment. I just wanted to make sure the council understood that, as had been observed, this is a different way of doing this than we've done in the last couple of years. This adopts the entire street package as a project, as opposed to each street as a project, as we've done the last couple of years. So like Councilman Kowalski said, if we run into a problem on one for various reasons, not necessarily fiscal, we can go to immediately to the next without having to come back and amend a certain street project. I think that's kind of been a hindrance to me, at least from a management standpoint. So I think this will serve us better, I believe.
I have another question, though. It also allows you, I would think, as a town manager, if there's another minor repair that occurs, because stuff happens, that you can go ahead and take it as long as it's within this budgeted amount. I mean, I'm sure you would inform us. I have no question about that.
That's correct. Yes,
But it's
ma'am.
your ability to be able to go ahead and say, this really takes precedent over something else for whatever reason.
Yes.
I'm anxious to get on with it.
I agree. And you said nothing's been done in Duckwoods. I thought we had done some engineering already, didn't we?
But the only thing that we had was, I think, a little over a year ago, we had that one plan minus any stormwater removal off the street,
Yeah, but there
which
was,
then we
let's say there's
changed
been
that.
some engineering.
No,
I
haven't
mean,
se-
not for the final package.
Yeah, I haven't seen really anything, because we have a problem with getting the water off the street, with
Right.
getting right-of-way permissions to get piping through to get water off.
We're not back pre that effort, I guess is all I'm saying.
And we're still trying to find that.
The town engineer is addressing that
Right.
right now rather with priority.
Right.
He realizes that we've put this thing off 2 years, and I hope that the town manager will make it its #1 priority to get on with that, because the people have been promised a long time. Shall we approve this plan?
Yes. Sure. Yes.
Would you like a motion to approve it?
Move we approve the
This 2000
CIP package.
2000, actually, it's the fiscal year 2014 CIP package.
I'll second.
All those in favor, any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same side. We have it. We turn to the budget ordinance for fiscal year 14. And we turn to our town manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I just wanted to call your attention on page 4 of the proposed budget ordinance. There is a typo. This page 4 got printed out with last year's date, 2012-13, in section 11. That should be 2013-14, down in section 11 at the bottom.
That's line 217.
Yes, sir. Line 217. Behind the red binder is the various information that went to public hearing. including the line item budget, and I think it's appropriate probably for us to go to the line item at this point and ask council to consider amending consistent with what you did with the streets. This would take a motion to increase the funding by $114,000 to the capital reserve fund / streets, and we would make 3 changes throughout this by doing that. So the $516,000 would be increased to $630,000. Beginning on page 1 there, where it says transfer out to capital reserve streets, that would increase from 516 to 630, and then the next line down would decrease by 114,000. So I think a motion to increase funding for capital reserve fund for streets from 516 to 630 would be would take care of everything on that respect.
And this doesn't affect the line item for Powell bill on page 10.
No,
That will
that'll stay exactly the same. Yes, ma'am.
It'll still come into the general fund and then transfer out.
So you mentioned fixing that one in capital reserve, and you said a second line, what,
It's the line right below.
the
Yeah,
one
we-
transfer out, okay,
the-
okay,
the-
I'm
if-
with you.
Right, the transfer out will decrease.
Right, okay.
So, in effect, if council were to make the directive to increase the funding, the other lines would adjust accordingly.
And then this will also modify that very last page.
That's right. The capital reserve fund, the last page would be modified by virtue of that action as well.
I move that we approve those funding changes as designated by the town manager for the capital reserve fund changes.
Second.
We need to discuss it further.
No.
If not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. You have your
Thank you.
plan, Mr. Manager.
If we go back then to the budget ordinance itself, of course, with that will, that amendment changes the contribution to capital reserve fund. We've already had it printed in? I'm sorry. Okay, this stays the same. Okay, this is 856,210, excuse me. That balance is okay, excuse me. Right, the contribution to capital reserve fund includes both the generic contribution and the street contribution, so that amount is total. Excuse me, that stays the same. I was jumping the gun, 856,210. This is the proposed budget ordinance to you that incorporates all of the lines that we have discussed over the last 2 months and have actually gone to public hearing. Section 2 on page 2, capital reserve fund, that is the number that will change, excuse me. That number will change based on your previous motion, where it says transfer to general fund for future capital projects at 516 will increase by $114,000. This year's budget ordinance has a section 3 for cemetery fund, based on your previous directives to create a cemetery fund. Section 4 establishes the new tax rate. Recall the town will be adopting the revenue neutral rate. Section 5 is essentially the same as last year's budget ordinance. It authorizes the town manager, budget officer, and finance officer to engage in the spending practices consistent with your policy that you have adopted. Section 6 incorporates the law pertaining to capital reserve fund expenditures. And Section 7 is new. By law, we are able to incorporate into your budget ordinance a capital project ordinance or capital project provision, and that is what we're doing with the canal project since it is borrowed money. We have to adopt that as a portion of this on record. So this calls for adoption of a capital project for the canal fund, and also creates a fund, and this recognizes the fact that the project is projected at $1,547,880, and acknowledges that it is debt. So since it is debt, we have to incorporate it as a capital project. So that is new, and that outlines the budget that we've gone over for that fund for the next year. Section 8 is the same, recognizing lease revenues. Section 9 authorizes the budget line transfers that we have, by policy, engaged in for the last 2 years at least. And Section 10 gives the mandates for budget officer restrictions. And that is it that we have proposed to you. So if there are any questions, I'll be glad to try to go over each item. And just to recall, Section 1 is in the format that is required by the auditor using auditing practices mandated by the LGC. So that's why this is in a different format than the actual specific line items. And again, this budget this year is $5,598,065. It is based on revenue neutral, and it calls for no rate increase.
Council, I move to adopt an ordinance of the Southern Shores Town Council adopting a budget and tax rate for fiscal year 2013-2014 and creating a capital project. We have a second.
I'll second.
Discussion. We have discussed it since February. I think we've discussed it enough. We're ready to vote. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Town manager, you have a budget.
Thank you very much.
It's the people's budget.
I understand that,
Good luck.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Council, we had placed before us at our last meeting the matter of the zoning text amendment governing regulations governing signs. This is brought to us by Duckwood Country Club. Mr. Planner, would you like to speak to this before we have a public hearing? We do have a public hearing that we must hold on it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. You should have in your packets a copy of the staff report as well as the proposed language, which is an amendment to Section 36-165, Regulations Governing Signs, and that is an application from Duckwood Country Club. They are proposing to amend those two sections, or 36-165, and town staff is suggesting that you also amend 36-57, definitions of terms and words, to include a definition for a country club. Town staff suggests defining a country club as a private recreational facility which is open to members and their guests and shall include a golf course and clubhouse. So the applicant is proposing the following language, which would allow country clubs to erect a two-sided sign not exceeding 32 square feet in size per face or 9 feet in height above existing grade, which may be indirectly lighted and shall be set back at least 15 feet from the property line. The Town Planning Board unanimously recommended approval of the application, and town staff also recommends approval of the application, and that it is consistent with the town's currently adopted land use plan. If you all have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer those for you right now.
I open this matter to a public hearing. Is there anyone, member of the public, that would like to speak to it? Seeing no sign of activity, Yes, ma'am. And, yes.
Okay, just as being the previous vice president of Duckwood's Country, of the Women's Association of Duckwood's Country Club, and contacting speakers, some of whom have, if they are not from the area, have difficulty finding our facility. And I think a sign is something that's really, really needed, and therefore I'm proposing or hoping that you will amend the sign regulations as they are.
Thank you. Anyone else? The public hearing is closed. Council, what's your pleasure?
I'd like to talk about one aspect of this. And it's the, and I have nothing against this thing, so that's not nothing to do with being against. It's H, country club signs, the language used in describing what this sign may or may not be. I find it to be problematic in the English language, saying sign may be 1 or 2-sided, shall not exceed 32 square feet in size per face, excluding any support structure, comma, or 9 feet in height, which gives me an either-or presentation as to you try one or the other in the way I look at that, which may be totally wrong. I was wondering, why could we not just use, roughly take the paragraph out of 8, which is, I believe, 8, what is it, 8, I'll find it, too many paragraphs here. I'll get it, 8B, and just take the paragraph of 8B, which discusses the same thing in signs of churches, etc., and just modify it slightly and put that in its place so we have consistency in this ordinance with the paragraphing. So my proposal is just to, instead of putting what I just read to you, just say 1 freestanding sign per street frontage. Sign may be 1 or 2-sided, not to exceed a total height of 9 feet above existing grade or exceeding 32 square feet in size per face, excluding support, which may be indirectly lighted and shall be set back at least 15 feet from the property line, which kind of like takes 8B and adapts it slightly to take out church, etc., out of it, and puts it in there and makes it clear as opposed to what we currently have there, and runs the same theme throughout. So it's just a matter of terminologies.
Is this the language you're proposing?
It's the language I'm proposing.
That you just passed out to us?
I did, that's the language I'm proposing.
As a
And I
sub-
talked to Wes yesterday about it, and he kind of was in agreement with it too.
As a substitute to H as in the proposal of the planning board?
I think it's just cleaner.
I have no problem with that.
You discussed this with the planner?
Wes? He and I talked about it yesterday, and I sent him a copy of this yesterday, so he is aware of it.
You discussed it with the planning board chairman?
No, never got a chance.
Planning board chairman is here. I think it's fair to ask him for a reaction.
Would you like to see it?
Yes, just from what George said, it sounds perfectly reasonable to make that consistent. That was the intent initially, to make it consistent, and we never caught the point that George made with the or. So I think that this is acceptable language in placement. Thank you.
Any further discussion? It's up to you to move it.
Okay, so you want me to move the whole thing?
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to move that we adopt ZTA 13-13-02, the sign amendments for Duckwoods Drive with the changes.
Club.
Pardon, Duckwoods Country Club, sorry, got roads in my mind. With the changes, included changes to paragraph 8. 8, I'm sorry, not H, not 8H, 8, H, okay. It's actually 8H.
8H.
H, yeah, 8H.
Say that
Fast, really fast, 5 times, 8H.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion on it? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed, same sign. We have with us.
Are we okay with that? Yes, ma'am. Okay, we don't have to add that little piece about the land use plan? That's included in the ordinance. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's included in the ordinance this time. We're going to do that consistently, aren't we?
Yes.
We will have it in every
So we don't have to remember it.
change to the zoning so that we're sure it's in there and we don't have to remember it. We have in the audience Mr. Patrick Keefe, the general manager of the country club, and we're glad to see you here. And you have permission to do a sign. Yeah, good. And while you're here, I would mention to council that Mr. O'Keefe recently sent me a letter of commendation and thank you for the fire department for its help in his annual training exercise with his people. And I appreciate the thought. And I shared that with the fire department. Good. Council, we're marching right on. Our town attorney is not with us this morning, and his substitute, Mr. Robert Hobbs, is supposed to be here by now. Can we go ahead with this new business discussion, tab 5 and 6, without him?
We could go, I would recommend considering item C under Roman numeral 8, since that has nothing to do with...
Planning board appointments?
Yes, sir.
Okay. For that, we'll turn to our planner.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Members Bill Gleason and Bob Palumbo's terms are set to expire on the 30th of this month. And it has been customary for council to fill the new vacant positions by moving up 2 of the alternates. Excuse me. So that would move Elizabeth Morey and Gray Berryman to regular members and create 2 vacancies for alternate members. So we request that you make this appointment at this time.
We don't have our usual display of members and terms and expiration dates. These would be effective
They would become effective July 1st.
for 3 years,
Yes, sir.
which leaves us with no alternates,
We would have vacancy for alternate positions, correct?
2 alternate vacancies.
Yes, sir.
And we're in the process of recruiting. We've advertised and collecting interested folks who might be interested in not only these appointments, but any other future appointments as well. So we are in the process of that.
Good. Elizabeth Morey has been alternate for quite some time.
She came on just before Mr. Berryman.
Yes. What's your pleasure, council?
I move that we appoint both Elizabeth Morey and Gary Berriman from alternate position to full planning board membership
For a 3-year term?
for a 3-year term effective July 1.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll second.
2013. We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
I would say that we have 2 long-serving planning board members who chose not to continue. And could we prepare staff an appropriate recognition for those 2 members, Bob Palumbo and Bill
Bill
Gleason?
Gleason. We were going to do that, but they were unable to make the meeting today, so we will try to do that in one of our next council meetings.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, I can comment on
Did I see him come in?
did want to explain that the overnight change is in the escrow agreement, the third document. Of course, Robert is real estate counsel for our town attorney, and he's the attorney who has prepared these documents and has been in dialogue with the bank. Last night, we were notified that the bank had a policy change. We no longer have to, or required to do an escrow account. We can actually have our own account, and they can deposit these proceeds from which the finance officer can draw directly out of that. But because of that change, Robert felt like he obviously needed to present that to you in draft form today, and that's why I told him it was fine if he was running late. But I can comment on these documents as we talk, or we can wait till Robert gets here, or your pleasure.
About after the orange,
Yes.
the escrow deposit agreement?
Yes, that will be the main change today.
And do you know where it is? Do you have the wording? Or does he have?
He is,
hasn't provided you with wording?
no, he was working on that early this morning, and he's bringing it with him. Yes, sir.
Okay.
That will be the main change.
Can you address the deed of trust security
Yes, sir.
agreement?
The first document that you have is the security agreement for the collateral for this loan. The loan, of course, is in the principal sum of $1,547,880. It is the security agreement that secures the installment contract. So we will have, in essence, the town hall complex will be mortgaged for this loan, in simple terms. Once the loan is paid off, of course, this deed of trust will be canceled and taken off. But that basically creates a lien on this property until such time as all the conditions of the installment contract are fulfilled. It is in basic form that has been agreed upon. There have been no changes basically in this. It is standard language for default. The town is obligated to comply with the installment contract so that this deed of trust does not go into default and we run into problems with the property here. If there are any specific questions on this, I will try to answer. Of course, it has requirements for insurance to be in place, no waste of the property, et cetera. Nothing, we can't do anything that would diminish the value of the property during the
I
time of
only
the
have one
installment.
question.
Yes, ma'am.
In the definitions on the second item behind the blue thing under page 3 of this second project, it defines property. And that's why I was curious about the property. And you said it's a town complex. After the blue tab, what do you call that thing?
Okay. You're talking about the installment
Financing
contract?
Yeah.
You're talking about the second. Okay, the second document is the actual
Second.
installment contract.
And then on page 3,
What is it by number?
1.15. That defines a property as a piece of land, certain parcels of land on which the town hall is located. It didn't mention all of them, but you're really saying it covers, I just want to clarify for myself, it covers the pit center, the town hall, and the police department. It's the whole,
Yes, if you'll go back to the deed of trust,
yeah, I saw that
Exhibit
map
A.
description of the,
it's this entire complex.
right, so it's the entire complex.
Yes, 3 buildings,
Okay.
asphalt, grass, bushes.
They didn't ask for the public works building?
No, we were able to negotiate that as a out this time, so that is not secured by this.
Okay.
So that will remain free and clear.
Worst comes to worst, we can move the town government to the public works building.
Yeah, if things get that bad.
After the blue tab is the installment financing contract, and basically what that is the promissory note whereby the town is promising to pay back that principal sum at the interest rate that we agreed upon, interest rate being Exhibit B, under the terms and conditions that we agreed upon as committed to by P&C. So that is basically the note, the promissory note.
And it has no prepayment penalties.
The prepayment is as was described previously. If the market were to go haywire and there was a call in, there could possibly be an increase in the payback. But if the language as described by PNC to us at the I believe it was 2 meetings ago. Unlikely, but it could happen that way.
But we can prepay it if we like.
Yes, oh yes,
We can
absolutely.
prepay it, okay.
We could prepay without penalty, yes.
Is Hunton and Williams LLP counsel to the bank?
Yes, sir. Hunt and Williams is counsel to the bank.
The local government commission approved this. I presume that the local government commission also backs this loan?
I wish they did.
They don't.
No.
Okay. So, the reason I'm asking that, because I thought that there was a system in place where the League of Municipalities get involved, and they have to approve the loans or look at them or whatever. And that's one reason why there's so much free money to be given to municipalities in North Carolina, because the money's backed.
I'm not sure, quite frankly, I've never heard that. But the LGC does approve the loan and make sure that the town has financial capability of paying the loans back. And then they approve the transaction. But as far as guaranteeing,
And
there's
so
not-
therefore, they don't have any stipulations as to we have to do anything in particular regarding maintenance or anything like that?
there's no stipulation for maintenance of the canals at a later date. All this does is cover, it's cover the actual initial dredging, and you'll notice that the 7 years term has, and that is that has a meaning to it. That is a projected life of the project, basically, that the bank projects this to be good for, basically, 7 years.
When we did our budget, we were told that we had a requirement to include in this loan improvements to the property.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I was hearing from this question, is that, who made that requirement again?
The local government commission interprets the statutes that way. The Budget and Fiscal Control Act has stipulations in it that actually require certain type financing where we can't pledge everything, and which basically what we're doing now, with the exception of Public Works, is pledging all the town's assets. So once that happens, the local government commission requires part of the proceeds to be an improvement on the assets being pledged.
So that's kind of what, I think what you were asking, what I was hearing is, it's they don't guarantee anything, but we're required to show that we're keeping the property up to date during the process.
Which is why when the loan is larger than what it's supposed to be for the canal, so we can put a front porch on it in addition to the police department.
Right.
So we
Right.
build the garage.
The addition, the police department addition, there are some interior upgrades and a security system for the buildings. And yes, that's a good way of putting it, a theory way of putting it, because that's what happens.
Okay.
As I said, on the escrow agreement, there has been an overnight change. PNC is not requiring an escrow account anymore, and they're actually going to establish an account for us, a separate account to place the proceeds in for us to draw, actually just request a transfer as necessary. Our projections are that we'll be doing that on a monthly basis as this contract, the expenses of this contract come in. We're told that once we sign the contract today or tomorrow, that they are anticipating mobilizing starting the month of July in some respect. I don't know exactly what that means yet, but month of July will begin in August, and of course we can't start dredging until the moratorium is lifted in October, but there's a lot of pre-work to be done as well. So we'll be able to draw from our own account. And that's the change that has been made that Robert needed to present to you.
So if they don't require, the bank doesn't require an escrow, but we still need an escrow
I
agreement?
don't know. That's up to Robert. That's his advice to us today, to you today. I haven't seen it. I know he's been working a lot during the evening to comply with the bank's change. So,
Is council required to accept these documents formally?
yes, sir. You're required to vote on each document, and that the minutes need to indicate that
Yes.
for each document.
Well, we can move on the first two. But you're recommending we wait for the attorney for the escrow agreement?
Mr. Mayor, I would recommend, since the attorney is opining that you're doing this on his advice for each document, I really would recommend that the council wait to vote on each document once Mr.
Then
Hobbs is here.
We can defer this until our next meeting unless he shows up here promptly.
Well, we can't, unfortunately. The documents have to be recorded tomorrow. So I apologize that Robert's not here, but that was the bank's doing, so.
He's
Yeah,
on his way, I presume?
he is on his way.
We hope so.
As a side note, Peter, just to decide that it would behoove us then, I would assume, with all this starting to pre-plan, that July 1st, we start sending out advertisements for this new position for the head of public works, so that we can hire somebody sooner possibly, so they can get involved in this sooner than later kind of idea?
That's my plan. I have not developed any kind of job description formally on paper yet because you hadn't adopted the budget until today, but my plan is to be doing that over the next couple of weeks
Well,
and advertise it accordingly.
that's another subject, of course.
Yeah.
We do have another item that we can act on, can we not? Item B, tab 6, while we're waiting.
Yes, sir, and that we can't act on that. And I just got an email from Robert that says he hopes to be here by 10. So he's printing everything out now for you to look at. Tab B is basically the acceptance of is basically authorizing either the mayor or the town manager to sign the contract. And you can act on that. My title is there, but I didn't mean for that to show up. So basically what we had done before is award the bid contingent on the loan, but this action request is a request for either the mayor or town manager to be able to go ahead and sign the contract with Salmon Contracting. And basically it's the cover sheet to the massive set of documents that comprise the contract, as well as the bid sheet there that you see. So we can do that.
Any questions?
And you said the contract itself says words about pending on the loan? I mean, that stipulation, assuming everything goes through?
That was the award, but we could do this today, contingent on you approving the loan documents, authorizing either the mayor or the town manager
It's
to
really
sign the
what we're going to
contract.
approve in this that makes the difference.
You could do it contingent if you like. I would just recommend, this is not a major document, so you could do that contingent on you taking the action under A.
It's not valid until signed.
Right, so nobody would sign it anyway until we've approved the loan, correct?
Okay, so it's which comes first.
You want to move this?
I move that we approve the acceptance and contract with the Solomon's Dredging Incorporated, authorizing the town manager to approve the contract.
I'll second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Mr. Mayor, Wes just told me that Robert had actually called and said he would be here in 20 minutes, so a little after 10. I'm sorry that this has happened, but it's just the way it happens with closings, and we were trying to.
We move ahead on the agenda and ask you to give
All right.
your report.
Thank you. Did want to report to council, Honeysuckle Drive continues. We're hopefully in the stages of actually beginning to pave very soon. The concrete work and the drives have been done. If you have not seen it in progress, please take a trip over there. It's turned out to be a nice project. Not as fast as we would like, but the contractor had a lot of other things happening at the same time, but no major problems with that particular project. I did want to comment to you on emergency management planning for the season. The town is represented in all the planning sessions that we have coming up. We have updated the computer program, HERVAC. We have reviewed our emergency management plan. Our ham radio system will be tested next week here at Town Hall. And today, I'm in the process of notifying homeowners associations and some private citizens on private streets and roads of Town of Southern Shores as to FEMA policy regarding debris pickup. That seems to be the major headache every time we do have a declared storm. For every town or county, is that there is always a misunderstanding about what FEMA can fund and what it cannot fund. And I'm notifying the associations that do maintain private streets and roads that FEMA will not fund the town picking up debris from those private streets and roads unless there's a waiver. And typically the waivers are not granted until weeks or sometimes even months into recovery. And by that time, the streets have already been picked up by the private associations, and we cannot reimburse.
And it's a waiver from FEMA?
Waiver from FEMA. So there's always a lot of disconcern in the beginning of a recovery period about that, and I've just wanted to make that absolutely clear to those who maintain private streets in Southern Shores, which we do have approximately a dozen. So that'll go out very soon today.
Is it possible to rely on what FEMA did previously, because what they declared previously in our last storm as to what was private as opposed to what was public, and go by that also? Or is it they changed their mind?
I cannot rely on a waiver from an individual storm in the past.
Okay.
They it's notorious about changing policy from storm
Okay.
to storm to
All
storm.
right.
That's always a problem. Last time, recall, we were in the pickup stages during Hurricane Irene. Our contractor was almost complete by the time FEMA actually granted a waiver. We had to work with Dare County to get a waiver, and a lot of the homeowners associations, several of them had already done their pickup. And we're interested in trying to get reimbursed, which we cannot do that with public money. So there continues to be misunderstandings about that issue. And this is an attempt to try to clarify that ahead of time, as always.
FEMA knows what they're doing. They know what they're doing. Yeah.
As I said, after today, we'll proceed with signing the contract with Salmon and get underway with proceeding with that major project for the town of dredging the 5-some miles of canals. After today's budget adoption, we will be advertising for the new position, Public Works Director. The building for the police department is still in the architectural drawing stages, and hopefully by the end of July, we will sometime in July, we will have that ready to be bid out. And I will be attending the North Carolina City and County Managers Summer Conference in New Bern this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So I will be attending that as we did last year. I did last year for the town. That is my report, and I will try to answer any questions if anybody has anything.
I have a question. I took a ride over to Deer Path, both by car, and then I returned by bicycle to get a closer view. And then I went by foot. I'm suggesting that RPC not use Deer Path as an example of road construction in their portfolio. What can we do about this, and what is being done about the status of this road and its condition?
Well, as I reported to you, when the project ended, we have a guarantee from RPC, and the guarantee has time limits where we can, threshold limits for number of repairs required, et cetera, that would trigger a repaving.
Which is, I think, if I remember, because I've got a copy of it here, that we're approaching the number 5 very quickly.
Yes, sir. And the contract engineer and myself are probably talking about that daily. So we will make a move when it is appropriate to talk, and hopefully it'll work out. So far it has.
I think by the time they improve the breaking up of the pavement in front of Michael's property, they will have reached 5 repairs, which is the trigger.
We'll report to you that things on the beach are going very smoothly. As you heard from the CRO last week, the new CRO, he makes 3 rides a day on the public beach in addition to his other duties of parking monitoring and checking in the communities. Our beach policies are being administered and enforced, and things, all good comments. We meet with I met with the, Surf Rescue and the CRO, the Police Department, and planning yesterday to plan out our administration of beach policies for the rest of the summer, and things seem to be going very smoothly.
Any other questions of the manager? I don't have anything on my, well, Peter mentioned that the hurricane emergency planning is under control, and the control group has been called to a meeting early July, I forget the exact date, just to discuss the procedures we'll be using, to discuss some new tools that the emergency management officer has available. Supposedly will help us make more and better decisions. We'll be doing that in July.
Who's chairing the control group now?
To date, it's the chairman of the county commission, Warren Judge. He has not appointed someone to replace a prior chairman, which was Mike Johnson. I really don't know what his plans are.
Okay.
It may, but we, as a control group, and I'm talking primarily the 5 mayors, have insisted that we go back to our old format where we meet as a group in a small conference room that can't hold any more people than the control group and 3 or 4 other people. Last year, we met as a control group in that big conference room at the county center, and all kinds of elected officials were out on the outside. And whenever elected officials get together, they all think that they have to say something. And it was a miserable exercise, I'll tell you. The most frustrating thing I've ever gone through is trying to deal with that control group last year. So I'm looking forward to returning to the old ways. I'm going to be out of town this weekend also.
Mr. Mayor, I could comment to council about the General Assembly. As you know, still in session, still contemplating and deliberating on a budget for the state. Both houses and the governor's office obviously pushing his. We are watching with the league the provisions that might affect revenues to local government, and there are several provisions out there that are floating around, several in particular that deal with sales tax and sales tax refunds that could affect projections in the future for revenues coming even to small towns. So we're watching those with the other towns as well, even though we're in revenue sharing formula, it would affect Dare County and the municipalities here. So with all the other legislation that could affect things in the county and also in Currituck County and the Outer Banks, that in particular we're keeping an eye on and trying to stay in touch with the league on how that would affect us.
Are they held to the end of June like the towns are for?
They're not. They could go into July, obviously, and on and on. Hopefully not. They've committed not to do that, but we'll see. Yes.
I might add to my remarks that the Build the Bridge, Preserve Our Roads Committee, the Duck Business Alliance, the Currituck County people have a meeting Thursday scheduled with Speaker of the House Tillett to continue the push for the Mid-Currituck Bridge. I am unfortunately not able to attend, but we'll be well represented in the contingent by our Build a Bridge people. We were hoping, and I think they still hope, to have a one-on-one with the governor on this issue. I would encourage everybody not to get their hopes up. Council? David, you have?
Nothing?
Nothing? Nothing? Larry?
I have nothing, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Sure.
I have nothing.
And Jody?
I have nothing.
Okay. We're going to be in recess until Attorney Hobbs makes his appearance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We're in recess.
Line item fee, does it go back line item veto in the state of North Carolina?
Recess is over. We've been joined by Attorney Robert Hobbs, who will lead us through the discussion of the loan documents. Tab 5.
Okay, yes, sir.
Good to have you.
Good to be here, sir. Thank you. All right, well, this is an installment financing through PNC. It's through their public finance division. This is tax exempt financing that is made available to municipal bodies at a very preferred interest rate. In this case, it's a fixed rate of 1.72%. The loan amount is not to exceed $1,547,880, and the funding is, of course, for improvements to the town hall and for the canal project. The term is for 7 years. That is the maturity date. And the security for the loan is a mortgage on the town hall property, so complex. So as you probably know, the town hall complex was acquired over several years in various pieces and parcels. And so what we've done, what the town has done as part of that is had a new survey prepared, and which correctly incorporates all the boundary lines for the property, for the complex as it exists now, and that will be recorded as part of the closing. And so the mortgage will be on the town hall property and will be placed there until the loan is paid off in full. There is on this loan, there is a prepayment penalty whereby if it's paid early, then the lender does have the option to charge more than just the accrued interest, and that is fairly common in commercial financing and local government financing. And I guess, but again, it is an option for the bank, and then the terms of the loan tell you how that penalty is calculated. Is based on a yield of U.S. Treasury securities. So what I have for you today is, should anybody like to review this, I have several copies of the installment financing contract, which is essentially a promissory note, and it sets forth the terms and conditions of the loan, and it also has attached to it the various exhibits that are to be signed, one of which is the description of what the purpose of the loan is. It also has the payment schedule and proposed amortization schedule. Of course, the amortization schedule is going to depend on how much money is actually borrowed. So since this is a future advances loan, the town's not required to actually draw all the money immediately. It can draw any part or all of it at any time it wishes, but it just cannot exceed the maximum that I mentioned. And as a result of that, the bank holds a lien for the maximum amount. And so in this document, there's an amortization schedule based on the full amount being drawn out. There's also some authorization and incumbency certificates, which the town manager, the mayor, and the finance officer sign as the parties who would be involved with the bank in day-to-day operations of the loan, the management of the loan after closing. There's also an insurance declaration. And so again, I brought copies for everybody. If anybody would like to review the document.
And I think, is this unchanged?
Yeah, and that was the same one, that's the one that was
Okay.
circulated earlier.
I believe they have the document, actual document unchanged in addition to the
Yeah,
amortizations.
there
I
is
mean,
a schedule.
except for that.
And the schedule that's being referred to is Schedule B1. So if you look after page B1, which is the Exhibit B, there's an amortization schedule that I added this morning. That is the sort of, I would call it a pro forma or specimen amortization schedule. Again, it's for information purposes only because the actual amortization is going to depend on how much has been borrowed at any one time. But if the full amount is borrowed, then that would be the amortization schedule. But I've been working with the bank's attorneys for a little over a month on these papers, and they did not seem, the final product is fine as far as I'm concerned. I didn't see anything that would be unduly detrimental to the town. While you're reviewing that, I'm going to pass out some other documents for your information. I'm not sure which version you have in your package. Last night, about 7:30 or so p.m., the bank's attorney sent me further revisions that removed an escrow requirement. And the way I understood that would be that previously the money would be dispersed by the bank and placed into escrow, and there would be more restrictions on the use of the funds. Apparently that got waived at the last minute, and so references to the escrow arrangement in the installment contract were removed last night, and then the escrow agreement that was part of this package was also removed. So that's not part of the loan at this point. And so there'll just be an account set up at PNC Bank with the loan proceeds in the town's name, and then those will be drawn upon by the town for these two projects that this loan is being made also handed out a deed of trust. This is the mortgage that's placed on the property and recorded at the Register of Deeds office.
Is there any change in the one you handed out and the one we have in our book?
There should not be any, no, sir. The legal description of that has been prepared based on the new survey that was made that I mentioned a few minutes ago. And that I didn't, again, that was negotiated with the bank, and I'm satisfied with that document as well. I also handed out a closing statement that was not required by the bank. Those charges are simply for the recording fees for the mortgage and for the survey, along with title insurance premium that we had to get a title insurance policy for the bank. And we're going to go ahead and have an owner's policy issued for the town as well, because the town does not really have a title insurance policy covering all the properties, at least as far as we can tell. So this will give you a policy for every part of the property. So that's, we'll just see if there's anything else. Basically, I have all the papers here to sign if the council wishes to approve the loan and the documents today. If it is approved today, then the closing will be tomorrow. We have everything signed today. We get all the documents back to the bank's attorneys, and then they would approve everything to be recorded tomorrow and then funded. So I'm available certainly for any questions you might have.
I'm fine, let's go. Let's get it done.
How do we approve each of these documents individually?
Mayor, I think you can just make a resolution to approve financing by PNC Bank on the terms that we've discussed. And then I believe under agenda, you have a separate resolution for authorizing the officers.
Yes, for the actual contract.
Okay.
Yeah, we've done that piece contingent on this.
So,
Number-
B, the affirmation of the
That's already been
execution
done.
authority.
Well, that's for the actual construction part
Oh,
of
that's
it.
for
Yeah,
construction.
yeah.
So for
It's A.
A, you would have a resolution to approve the financing with the PNC Bank and to authorize all of the appropriate officers to sign the loan documents, which appear to be the mayor, the clerk, and the finance officer and the manager.
I move the council approves all those loan documents as presented for the financing of the canal dredging project through the PNC Bank, and that the mayor, the town clerk, the finance officer, and the manager are authorized to sign such documents as required. Is that sufficient?
Yes, sir.
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Mr. Mayor, I was going to tell Robert that y'all have some other business in a closed meeting right after this, so I don't know if you want to coordinate having just the mayor sign the documents you have ready, or we can.
Quite a bit of signing to
Okay,
do,
whatever
because they
you-
want everything signed in 4 parts.
Okay.
And so I can, if you like, I can excuse myself if you don't need me
think-
for the rest of.
I think all Sheila and I will be excused probably as well, and
I thought we were going to
I'm sorry.
do all the signing tomorrow. Are we talking about something?
I think they'd like everything signed today and then have it actually funded tomorrow, because the way it's explained to
Okay.
me is that they wanted to get all the papers processed and in place,
All
and
right.
then they would tomorrow, they would just release the funds and allow us to record.
Okay, we are going to go into a short closed session here. I don't know how long it'll take, but we can do it afterwards.
That'd be fine, I can excuse myself and then,
Right.
be notified when we come back.
Is it an interest-bearing account that we keep the money in? Is it an interest-bearing account?
That's a good question, I don't have the answer, but I can get it for you between now and the time I come back.
I'd like an interest-bearing account, maybe it's 1% on the money in the bank account.
I'll try again, Anthony.
Give them, get 1%, give them 1.75. We don't pay our creditors for a quarter, 90 days, get some interest on the money. I'm always thinking up here, maybe.
Council, I move that we enter into closed session under the provisions, in accordance with the provisions of North Carolina General Statutes 143-318, decimal 11, paren A, paren 6, to discuss a personnel issue. You have a second?
Second.
Those in favor, aye. We will be into closed session, and
Peter,
We have the documents laid out on the conference table.
where?
Next door.
Next door? Okay. And, if you would give us about 5 minutes, and then re-enter?
Oh, you can come back.
Yeah,
Leave and come back. Okay.
yeah, give us 5 minutes. And council, we're in recess until, the room is clear.